Hello and welcome to Channel 51 News for Wednesday, August the 20th. Once again, a lot of news coming from around the world and Australia. And of course, we have an economic productivity summit going on right now. And instead of it being about lowering taxes, encouraging business, and making it all about how we're going to put more money into the pockets of those paying the taxes, this time around, the Labor government is twisting things the other way. And yet again, another radical report, this time out of news.com.au, where Frank Chung is telling us in this article that there is a proposal, would you believe it, for a growing call to tax the family home. That's right, a radical proposal to tax the family home has been described as distasteful but a necessary measure to reduce inequality. Inequality? How does that work? So someone who can raise the money to purchase a home in a given suburb, location, suddenly, of course, that's worth more than somewhere else, and therefore we're going to address inequality. But is that really what it's all about? Well, the proposal aims to remove a Keating reform, which was to have no capital gains tax paid on the principal place of residence. And this time round, the proposal is to tax the family home. So how is that going to work, or could that work? And will it mean that it would be backdated until the date that you purchased your home, or would it be something that would kick in from the date of said proposal? These are all got to be nutted out, of course, and debated. But you'd have to think that this would be something that would bring down government. But so unpopular it would be. But then again, Albanese, 94 seats out of 150, probably thinks he can get away with anything, even though he wants to bring it up, test the waters, and then decide after the next election whether or not he would go through with it. And the idea is that there would be some form of loss of revenue. They believe of $50 billion a year in unpaid future capital gains taxes on the principal place of residence. But if you bought a property, let's say 20 years ago, for $250,000, and that property today might be worth $1 million, just rounding out those numbers, suggesting a gain of $750,000, less costs. But would it also include less interest costs, the cost of that home, or not? Or is this just a take where the government says, well, you made $750,000 from selling price to buying price, and therefore we're going to put that onto your taxable income for the year and tax you at your marginal rate of tax? Well, that just seems obscene, doesn't it, that you're going to pay 20 years worth of tax in 1 year at that marginal rate? And what happens to the interest bill and the costs of course, maintaining that home along the way? It's one of those crazy proposals that you do wonder what is really going on with the Labor government. But this is the crazy mentality of what we're seeing today. Now, meanwhile, the stories popped up about Ivan Milat, and this one comes from True Crime Coffee and Crime, and it's found at eurekaq.org. And the suggestion here is that Ivan Milat had been procuring children for politicians and judges. That's right, and it relates it back to a 1990 story on Channel 9 about Mr. Bubbles, a pedophile who was procuring or had been procuring children based on running a kindergarten and allegedly horrifically abusing children. Police listed 17 young victims and more than 54 criminal charges were eventually laid. But when Mr. Bubbles' case went to court, none of the children were allowed to give evidence. The charges were thrown out and the alleged pedophile was set free. And this quote from the article, having examined them and talked with them, I'm absolutely convinced the children were sexually abused. And that comes from the head of the Child Protection Unit at Camperdown's Children's Hospital in Sydney. But the thing is, it's not just about Milat. It's the fact that Jeremy Buckingham, Upper House State MP for legalised cannabis, well, he is on a mission. He thinks there's more to the Ivan Milat story. Is it related or not? Take a look.
East of Belanglo, Ivan Milat, 5 young women and 2 men, were all victims of the serial killer.
Where did you start? What was the first thing you pinned up on the wall?
For 8 years, New South Wales Upper House MP Jeremy Buckingham has become increasingly obsessed with one man, the backpacker killer, Ivan Milat.
Ivan Milat arrested by heavily armed police at dawn yesterday.
I think it's fair to say that we do have a serial killer.
Convicted of murdering 7 young people whose bodies were dumped in the Belanglo State Forest south of Sydney, Milat died in jail 6 years ago.
And while he died alone in a Sydney prison cell, it was still far more dignified than the horrific deaths he inflicted on others.
But that, says Buckingham, barely scratches the surface of his offending.
I think that Ivan Milat is probably one of the worst serial killers in human history. I think he has killed scores of people, if not hundreds of people.
I've asked for his work records, his driving records, his prison records, his police records. 0000.
Buckingham has been seeking government files that he believes will connect Milat to a vast swathe of murders in the 1970s and 80s, years before his public notoriety over the backpacker murders.
It's an extraordinary story, and it keeps developing. And from the article, Buckingham asked rhetorically, who on earth would have wanted to protect a killer as evil as Ivan Milat? Organised crime? Ivan Milat would have been very, very useful to organised crime. Now, in another claim, Buckingham tells the program that he believed that Milat's former criminal defence lawyer, John Marsden, had a sexual relationship with the serial killer and may have offered protection to Milat. John Marsden, in his own words, describes sheltering Ivan Milat in the 1970s. Buckingham said that Milat had sheltered in his house. Hugh Remington, the reporter in that story, shot back, any criminal lawyer naturally has an association with criminals. That doesn't make them friends of those criminals. It doesn't make them run interference or use connections to protect them. What makes you so convinced that John Marsden was doing all those things for a man like Ivan Milat? Buckingham claims the pair had built a relationship, and I think that relationship was a lot deeper and a lot longer than people understand. And therefore, it seems to lend weight, long way to go yet, to this particular story, Ivan Milat procuring children for politicians and judges there. Stephen Masters, one of the many survivors of the infamous Darroch Boys Home, who claimed to be one of Australia's worst documented pedophile havens when it was exposed by 60 Minutes. But there's much more to the story that's ever been revealed. Stephen speaks about his interactions with Ivan Milat. He says Darroch was a government-owned and operated institution, and the filthy government was operating the satanic VIP pedophile ring inside of Darroch Boys, were being trafficked to different locations, including Costello's Boys Club at King's Cross, and the very same satanic pedophile ring that politicians, judges, lawyers and priests were all connected to. Tell you what, that plot thickens. It is a big story. Of course, it needs warriors to keep working on it, and full credit to Jeremy Buckingham, obsessed or not, following the leads and doing the work that government officials should be doing. But why are the police and the politicians and the judges? Well, you almost answer its own question, doesn't it? Well, yesterday we reported on the fact that Warwick Stacey, the newly elected state New South Wales senator for the federal government for One Nation, has already announced his resignation. Well, there is a little bit of a buzz at the moment because people are wondering who should replace Warwick Stacey in the upper house in Canberra. Well, one name comes to mind. It was brought up, and it's Stuart Bonds. That's right, Stuart Bonds, who was the lower house candidate for the Hunter. Stuart scored 16.3% in the Hunter election, came in third to Labor and the Nationals, and he was the single best performing non-mainstream third-party candidate in Australia. He's a proud Australian farmer, coal miner, tradesman who's called the Hunter Valley home for at least 15 years. He supports One Nation's push for increased apprenticeships, backing subsidies that will help businesses take on more apprentices and build a skilled workforce for the future. He says, we need investment back in our local communities, and the best way to do that is by encouraging businesses to invest in the future. Our kids are our future. He's a staunch advocate for preserving the coal industry. Stuart wants to create an economic environment that encourages companies to invest in full-time jobs and large-scale infrastructure projects in the region. He said people can't move away from the city because of poor infrastructure planning, so let's bring the city to them. Let's build a high-speed rail and ease congestion in the cities whilst boosting our regional towns. Well, I'll tell you what, he is a breath of fresh air. And when you meet Stuart Bonds, you realise that that is a salt of the earth working class man who is doing the bidding for his community. And one way or another, it'd be great to see him in Canberra. So if you want to support Stuart Bonds in the campaign to get him sent to Canberra to replace Warwick Stacey, maybe you send a letter, an email to One Nation and see if you can get some support there. Meanwhile, in mainstream news today, doctors ignored a 29-year-old's stage 4 cancer symptoms until it was too late. An Australian musician was showing symptoms for months, but repeatedly was turned away by doctors until it was too late. Jordan Bernoli, a bass player for the Brisbane band Bugs, opened up about his incurable stage 4 colorectal cancer at just 29 years of age. He discovered that the cancer had spread from his bowels to his liver and lymph nodes after a doctor finally agreed to give him a scan. His bandmates have since created a GoFundMe page for his treatment. The band first broke the news to fans in a heartbreaking post in June. It revealed that he was sent away from the emergency room and his GP repeatedly after first showing symptoms. Months of constant pain, he was finally sent for a scan and diagnosed with the stage 4 cancer. Now, why are we bringing this up and why is it a big deal? Well, it turns out that just today on his Substack called Focal Points, Courageous Disclosure, Dr. Nick Holscher, there he is, reveals the first peer-reviewed paper defines COVID jab-induced turbo cancer. For the first time, turbo cancer has moved from censorship into the peer-reviewed medical literature. And he writes along the lines of, the turbo cancer was first ridiculed as an anti-vaccine conspiracy theory. Health authorities, mainstream outlets, and even Wikipedia insisted there was no evidence such a phenomenon exist. However, a recent literature review outlined over 100 peer-reviewed studies indicating that mRNA may cause or accelerate cancer via 17 distinct biological mechanisms. And now, for the first time, a peer-reviewed scientific article titled COVID-19 mRNA-induced turbo cancer has been published in the Journal of Independent Medicine that formally defines turbo cancer and compiles the growing body of clinical cases, epidemiological signals and mechanistic pathways explaining how COVID-19 mRNA shots and the spike protein may have driven sudden, aggressive, treatment-resistant cancers. Wow, we are finally getting to that stage. Incremental as it may well be, not the revolutionary switch that we all want, but good work is good work and must be supported. And if you want to support this show, I am forever grateful, especially to the paid subscribers that joined yesterday and in the last few days. Thank you so much for your support. It means the world, but it also means that we can build an infrastructure here and keep developing. And the offer that we've got for August is that you can subscribe at channel51.com.au or at QCitizen.net. That's the new name for my Substack over there. Was $75, now $51. That's an annual plan amounting to around 98 cents per week. And just this week, the lineup outside of the news program that you get each day included on Sunday, Dr. Shankar Acchetti, Rob McMullen on Monday, Kathy O'Brien, MK Ultra survivor, was last night. And tonight, Dr. John Brady will be on the show. He's a forensic psychologist and talks about MK Ultra mental disorder, talking about cases including RFK's killer, Sirhan Sirhan. We talk about Epstein and a whole bunch of other interesting stories there. Scott Wheeler will be on Thursday to continue the Clinton crime series, and 9/11's Richard Gage and Dr. William Mackus on Saturday round out the massive week that we have for you here. And forever grateful for your support. And equally, if you can support Stuart Bonds for Canberra, I think that would be a pretty cool thing to do as well. Well, let's get into a bit more of the detail from Nick Holscher's article. He says turbo cancers are defined as unusually aggressive, rapidly progressive malignancies. They are marked by sudden relapses in patients previously in remission, new onset in younger individuals at advanced stages. The epidemiological red flags, data from the US, UK and Japan, show abrupt increases in cancer incidence and mortality beginning in 2021. And you know what that tracks to. Meanwhile, VAERS analysis reveals the most disproportionate reports involve appendix, breast, colorectal, endometrial, laryngeal and liver cancers. He also explains the mechanistic pathways have been identified where the spike protein disrupts fundamental defense systems, including metabolic reprogramming, apoptosis resistance, cancer stem cell activation, angiogenesis and metastases, and immune invasion, including IgG4 induction, lymphopenia, NK cell suppression. I remember reading a Dr. McCullough article on TNT Radio on IGG4 way back in 2022. There you go. Better late than never. But I tell you what, you have to get to the results, and it's a process as much as we want to flick that switch. Well, the article also goes on to talk about prevention methods, etc., that could well be possible. Now, let's continue now, because we're going to head over to the US. And the big story that came out behind the Russia-Ukraine negotiations yesterday was mail-in ballots. Now, let's just put this into perspective. We'll provide a little bit of balance here. Here's Caroline Levitt dealing with it right now in response to Donald Trump's statement.
The White House continues to work on this, and when Congress comes back to Washington, I'm sure there will be many discussions with our friends on Capitol Hill and also our friends in state legislatures across the country to ensure that we're protecting the integrity of the vote for the American people. And I think Republicans generally, and the president generally, wants to make it easier for Americans to vote and harder for people to cheat in our elections. And it's quite mind-boggling that the Democrat Party could stand in opposition to common sense. He wants to ensure election integrity. There were great efforts that were made in 2024. I won't get ahead of myself for Hatch Act reasons to get ahead for the next election, but I can assure you this is a priority for the president.
Meanwhile, Democrats, they have a very different take on it. I wonder why.
We are in conversations with our attorneys to make sure we're defending Colorado's elections. Look, mail ballots are secure. They cannot be hacked because they're a piece of paper. That is increasingly more important as Trump has made our elections less secure since taking office again. He's disbanded much of the federal government's work on countering foreign disinformation and is obviously taking cues about democracy from a dictator, Putin.
Democrats. How do they even get out of bed in the morning when they just spew nonsense like that? It's on paper, so therefore it's secure. It doesn't matter that you can multiply paper, does it? Well, let's check in on some other information. Countries that have banned mail-in ballots, they have seen massive vote fraud problems. And from this article from SSRN, written by John Loft back in August of 2020, despite frequent claims that President Trump's warning about vote fraud, vote buying with mail-in ballots baselessly or without evidence about mail-in fraud, there are numerous examples of vote fraud and vote buying with mail-in ballots in the United States and across the world. Indeed, concerns over vote fraud and vote buying within mail-in ballots causes the vast majority of countries to ban mail-in voting unless the citizen is living abroad. So France banned absentee voting in 1975 because of massive fraud in Corsica, where postal ballots were stolen or bought and voters cast multiple votes. Mail-in ballots were used to cast votes of dead people. I wonder where we've heard that before. Meanwhile, Snopes even weighed in with its examination. France banned mail-in voting in 1975. Mexico banned it in 1992 due to fraud. Belgium banned it in 2018 due to fraud. Sweden doesn't permit mail-in voting. Italy doesn't permit mail-in voting. Ukraine doesn't permit mail-in voting. Russia doesn't either, nor Japan, and no Middle Eastern country permits mail-in voting. But somehow Americans just haven't caught on to the possibility that you could possibly have a corrupt system if you believe what Democrats are telling us. It's an extraordinary scenario, isn't it, that the Democrats are going to go down this pathway. They support crime. They support fraud. They support all sorts of things that mean that you just can't get to the truth, but they always are right. And that's the strange thing about it. They can never admit they've ever made a mistake in their entire lives. And one wonders what they'll do if Trump was able to bring peace to Russia and Ukraine. Let's go to the first of two comments here from Trump.
But Mr. President, you got the Article 5 protections, though, for Ukraine. So they're not going to be a part of NATO, but you still got them the same protection.
Right. So they're not going to be a part of NATO, but we've got the European nations, and they'll front-load it, and they'll have some of them, France and Germany, a couple of them, UK. They want to have boots on the ground. Not in. I don't think it's going to be a problem, to be honest with you. I think Putin is tired of it. I think they're all tired of it. But you never know. We're going to find out about President Putin in the next couple of weeks. That I can tell you. And we're going to see where it all goes.
Yeah, look, he's determined to speed up the process. Every day delayed is more dead soldiers, and that just can't go on.
And one of the things at the table was one of the gentlemen, who's a great guy, but he said, I hope I didn't insult him. He said, Well, let's meet in another month or two, and let's see if we can start, making some. I said a month or two, you're going to have another 40,000 people dead in a month or two. You have to do it tonight. And I did, actually. I called President Putin, and we're trying to work out a meeting with President Zelensky. We'll see what happens there. And then if it works out, then I'll go to the trilat and close it up.
So last night, I aired the interview with Kathy O'Brien. She being an MK Ultra victim and somebody who claims to have been and gave evidence before Congress of how she was sold into the highest levels of power in the United States and also around the world. And I think it's really important now for that perspective to show you part of that interview that I didn't show on the news yesterday, where I ask her how it is that some people can become perpetrators after being victims and others go the other way. Really interesting comments. So is it a case that these people become the perpetrators even if they are the victims themselves, whereas others draw the line and say no one is ever going to commit a crime again that's happened to me? What makes the difference, do you think, between those two psychologies?
Free thought, being able to wake up from the mind control itself. There are, when you consider that if you've got a family lineage, because Project Monarch is about the genetic family lineage aspect, because it was found in Himmler research that any abuse-based, knowledge-based, or belief system becomes autogenic in the brain after 3 generations. So they use, in my case, it was multi-generational incest-based family. In these families like the Bushes, you've got a propensity for the presidential aspect. So they want to keep it in the bloodlines. If someone is not cooperating with that naturally to be part of this globalist agenda, then mind control is used. They won't use mind control on someone who's already that way.
It's frightening. Now, moving on, and you can catch that interview if you'd like at channel51.com.au, or you can get it on Facebook or maybe on my X page at Jason Q Citizen 1. But as part of the examination, I reached out to Dr. John Brady, a forensic psychologist and criminologist, for his perspectives. And he's also written a number of different books on various different stories over the years, and recently wrote a book on Sirhan Sirhan in relation to the man who was convicted of killing Senator Robert F. Kennedy. Now, we got into a discussion about MK Ultra, and I wanted to get from him the science or the verification that there was science that produced this, and it wasn't just anecdotal, to which he confirmed. Now, as we progressed through the interview, inevitably it was going to go down the Jeffrey Epstein pathway. Now, I think this little excerpt they're going to play for you here, which is just a hint of the hour-long interview that will go to air tonight at 7:30 p.m. on channel51.com.au, gives you an idea of the thinking that goes behind it and the understanding, because we really are at the cusp of great change, great new knowledge that's coming. And let's get a look inside the mind of Dr. John Brady. He did make the point, didn't he, that he was an intelligence asset at that stage. That was Alex Acosta.
No, everybody is. I mean, maybe Ghislaine is. Her father certainly was. I mean, he was as controversial as Epstein, maybe even more so. So who knows what happened to Robert Maxwell? Who knows where he got his money? Who knows if he was an arms dealer? I mean, it's all these threads. What I'd like to focus on is, how did Ghislaine Maxwell come under the control of Epstein to become his procurer of women?
Yes, okay. Yes.
So how does she transfer this allegiance from her father, who she was obviously his favorite and the last child of 7 children, I believe? How did she deal with his death as a traumatic experience? Because she loved him, she worshiped him, she worked for him, she would do anything to please him. I don't know if there was anything sexual involved. Could have been. I don't really know. but she did everything. She satellized with him 100%. He's taken out of the picture in 91. She gravitates to New York, and she meets Svengali number 2, Jeffrey Epstein. Epstein may have victimized her. Maybe he was more perceptive than she was. He could see that she was a wounded bird and would be of help to him. So he entices her into his schema, into his plan to get women, and she becomes his paramour, his lover, his assistant.
What makes a certain victim become a perpetrator and another victim resist and say this will never happen to another human being again as to what happened to me? What's the difference in the two people?
It's one of the most salient features of child molesters is their own history. I used to have defense attorneys that would say, Bob was a victim of sexual assault, rape when he was 10, so that's probably good. And I'd say, no, counselor, you got it just the opposite. The propensity towards adult sexual offending, if you're a victim, is like 80% greater than not. So it's a process where, as you say, with Anna Freud, the identification with the aggressor becomes very actualized, and the person does to other people exactly what was done to them. So it's kind of in a way like the Stockholm syndrome, or a paradoxical affiliation with the aggressor, that the person begins to act out those things that they resent the most about the person that had mistreated them. Sirhan falls into the same category, that these people that mistreated him, he misperceives the value of that, includes it in his subconscious personality, finds a target, and then acts out on it.
You can catch the full interview this evening, 7:30 p.m, channel51.com.au. Now, the world of AI is frightening many of us, and we don't quite know where it's going or how quickly it's getting there. Here's a little clip concerning AI and the creation of music. We thought that creativity would be the lifeblood that would be able to resist what AI could probably do with process work. But have a look at this.
Here's my prompt. Create a square avatar of a fictitious female alternative / indie singer and a name for her.
Wow, Sadie Winters.
Sadie Winters, okay. The song is about walking away from someone who never really saw her worth. It's just going to create the song lyrics.
Wait, how many seconds was that?
That was like about 4 seconds. Oh my God.
Did you even read any of these, or you don't care?
I don't care. Put my lyrics in.
The lyrics that happen in 4 seconds.
Yes. And then hit create. Let's listen.
This is the world premiere.
I was paper, you were scissors, cut me out.
She's a good singer.
Good singer. Ooh, that's nice. Pretty good.
Where are we, Rick? Where have we found ourselves?
It's pretty amazing, actually. I hate to say it.
Scary, isn't it? Well, that ends Channel 51 News for Wednesday, August 20th. See you all either tonight or tomorrow.